Hey, Joe Northrop here, co-host of the K-Cup. Just a quick note on this week's episode. This week, we're kind of exploring the wish list of probably every architect in the business, and that is, the hope that contractors would become more collaborative in their, working with architects. So we devised a short list of 6 ways that contractors could be more collaborative with architects and make the project experience more enjoyable for everyone involved, but especially the architects. So we're going to touch on ways that we can collaborate better in private work, even in the public bid sector, and in the project delivery method CMAR inside of that. As well as we're even going to talk about how point number 6, coming full circle back around to post-project, actually having a sit down with the architect and talking about, what worked, what didn't work, what we could have done better on both sides of the aisle there. So anyways, hope you enjoy this episode and find some inspiration in the content. And again, we hope this promotes better collaboration between general contractors and architects going forward. So anyways, you found the K-Cup. Glad you're here. Let's jump in.
Hey, should I have this on this side like this, like you do?
Probably so.
Can see me.
So you see your mug.
Yeah, that's it, boy. You saddled this bronc, now you're going to have to ride it.
Take her on.
So John, I thought it'd be cool since, last week we had an architect on. We interviewed an architect, and, the subject came up towards the end of that episode about, how contractors might be able to collaborate better with architects. Of course, I think it was from the architect's point of view, but it just got me thinking about, the ways that we have collaborated in the past with architects and maybe some ways that we could improve on that. So I just thought it'd be cool this week just to kind of riff on some of those ways that we can collaborate a little bit. I know that you've got some thoughts on, based on actual projects that we've done and experience from the past. So anyways, I just thought we'd talk about it and see where it goes.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, cool. So you want to just dive in here and talk about this first point right here?
Let's go.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about was on the private projects, because we know that we're really looking forward to doing more private work. We've been cultivating that and working on that, and it just gives us a lot more flexibility and control and the ability to do the level of work that we like to do. Where sometimes on the public side we don't get to do all that we would be willing to do when it comes to our private clients. So on that private side, it's the thing that really stands out to me is how we're able to cost the design as it's being drafted. As the scopes start developing, we're able to get real world costs and start applying them to that and build the budget at the same time. And I know that we've done this multiple times with private clients. So do you want to talk to that a little bit about your thoughts on that and the benefit that you see of being able to do it that way? And I know that also there's probably some, I know there are some downsides, I wouldn't call them downsides, just differences with the private work versus the public side as far as, I guess, time, the element of time. And maybe that's something too that we can speak to about. Is there anything that we could do to tighten up the schedule or the time from the, first contact to actually, pulling the trigger?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, speaking on the time aspect, I know with, public bid or, working for certain entities and things like that, there's a lot of advertising, the bids that have to go in, they have to do this 2 or 3 times, and can take some time in the front where that kind of stuff's not required in private work.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned time. I'm sure there's some other constraints and stuff that we could discuss, but that's the first thing that hits my brain. But I mean, what I really like about, this private side and being involved early is we've seen it a lot of times where, projects, you get a set of plans and hit your desk, you spend a lot of time bidding it just to find out that the project's over budget and, it was more than the client was thinking or whatever.
Yeah.
So the process that we like to do and get involved in the beginning is, a lot of times they don't know their budget for sure, but we can usually throw out a pretty decent budget just based off of other projects and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then once they have a number in mind, they can really think about, is this something that we want to do? Do we want to move forward with this? And if it is, there may be a situation where they say, well, look, I know you're telling me $1 million, but can we do it for $750? We have that amount of money available.
Yeah.
But once we bring an architect on, now all of a sudden we have some real numbers that we can be working off of, and we can price it as we go and as we design. And one thing that I can think of recently on a project is, we had a building that we were trying to decide if we wanted to do like component builds or if we wanted to do like a pre-engineered building. And it was something that once we had a footprint, we were able to go in, do some pricing and understand which the best way forward would be, to try to meet the budget and also try to meet the need of the client.
Yeah.
So just those type of things, being able to do that really helps in the long run. And at the end of the day, you have a design and a set of plans that can be built according to the budget. And there's no backing up and rebidding or, any kind of value engineering. All that's kind of been done along the way.
Yeah.
So that's another area that saves time now that we're talking about it. I wasn't thinking of it in that aspect as I was telling you about it, but that would obviously save some time if you don't have to rebid and you can go straight into construction,
Yeah.
So that's one of the coolest things is just being able to work together with the architect, already have that budget kind of built. And there is times where, the architect comes back and says, hey, should we do it like this? Or how we want to do that? And we go to work on it and do pricing and figure out, the best way to do it. And then there's times where the architect, gives some good advice like, hey, I know you're thinking this, but in our experience, this is going to be better.
Yeah.
So it's just a good way to do it, and it gives both sides an opportunity to really bring value. And at the end of the day, you end up with something that's got a real high possibility of being built.
Yeah. So it sounds like that first step really is to get them in the ballpark, and then if the ballpark seems like a good fit, then from there. Now you can get serious and you can start doing some design elements and some rough drafts and start really pricing the job, start costing it.
Because a lot of times they just really don't know like what the cost is.
Yeah.
And, that helps them understand, we can do this project now, or no, this is like a year down the road or whatever. So it saves some time and effort if you get that, round budget out there in the beginning.
Yeah. So from a collaboration point of view then, between a contractor and an architect, how might an architect appreciate this, this method of delivering a project?
Yeah. I think that they do often, kind of provide budgets and stuff as well. So I think that, we can help solidify their budget, if you will.
Yeah.
And that would kind of take their responsibility off of them. Once they collaborate with us, they're not so concerned about building a budget and making sure their plans hit a certain number that may be, or maybe it is, or maybe it isn't realistic.
Yeah.
I think that would help give them confidence that the number we're working towards is a good number. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, nobody likes wasting their time, and although, designers love to design, they also don't want to waste their time. So they don't want to, draw a bunch of design that's not going to be, able to be used because of the cost. So by our being able to help provide some real cost as those plans are coming into view or into focus, it's just going to help them, I guess, really zero in on the elements that they can go forward with and not waste time on stuff that's just maybe would like to have, but
Yeah, I've definitely had, one of the architects that we work with a lot say, well, I just plugged this much per square foot. You think this will work? Mm-hmm. So us being able to give a little more insight and maybe a little more detailed pricing gives them the confidence to know that, that's a good number,
Okay. All right. Cool. So, how about talking on public projects? Again, getting back to this whole idea of us just being better collaborators, trying to help out
Yeah.
our architect friends. What can we do there as far as the public side goes? If say an architect approaches us and we know the bid's going to go out for public bid, but they have some questions.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things I can think of there. We've had a few opportunities where an architect that we work with frequently reaches out and says, "Hey, I'm trying to do this project for such and such. Can you help put together a budget for me?" Or they may say, "Hey, I got this project for this budget. It's this many square feet. You think we can do it?" So we've had quite a few opportunities through the years, obviously, to work with architects in that manner and kind of help put together a budget or kind of say, "Hey, yeah, your budget sounds good." The other thing that I think that you can really work together on, in a public manner with architects is once you are awarded the job, if there's a gray area or something that pops up,
Yeah.
just, try to work together and try to make it happen, in a way that in the best interest of the project and the kind of everybody involved. Those can become kind of divisive moments, if you will. If that's
Yeah.
a word, is that a word?
Yeah.
But just in those situations, just understand it for what it is and try to make it go away as best as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I know with the public bid situation, the way that's set up and the way bids are collected, a lot of times 5 minutes before the bid's due, you're still getting some numbers from different scopes and stuff. So once the bid's won and the job's awarded to somebody, at that point, because of your familiarity with the plans, because of bidding the project, particularly as a GC, you've had to go over, even though you're not breaking down each scope like the mechanical and all that, you have a pretty good idea of what's involved so that you can at least gauge when you get a number for each of those scopes that if they're even remotely, realistic or not based on your experience. But there may be things like that were kind of, I wouldn't say red flags, but kind of, had you raise an eyebrow when you're going over everything and putting your bid together. So once you get the project, then that might be a situation where for the sake of the project and not trying to have a problem later, you may have to like literally call in that sub and maybe put a meeting together with the architect and the GC and the sub, or at least get them communicating about this, this issue that you're seeing that could possibly be a problem.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you identified it early enough, I mean, you could, create some RFIs and stuff in the beginning, just to try to get that cleared up, before bid day.
Yeah.
Would be another thing that you could, potentially do.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can actually get it cleared up in that quick amount of time, that short period of time, sometimes it's a pretty fast process. All right. So anything else on the public side with collaboration? Again, trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the architect where we think they might appreciate contractors, making the effort to collaborate better.
Yeah, I mean, outside of what I said, I don't know anything right off the bat that I would add to it.
It seems like, I mean, what I wanted to ask you and you're telling me about, the times that you have had architects reach out and say, "Hey, I'm trying to get a bid together for whatever, the school district, and I'm just curious if you think this would work or whatever." I wonder how many of those projects you've come in second place on after helping.
I can think of two right off the bat. One of them, actually, I built the budget and then was second. It was kind of a private situation, invited bid.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Ouch.
That one definitely had a little sting. And then, I can think of another project, a pretty substantial project that we kind of helped put together a budget on, and we ended up second. So don't always mean we get the job.
Ouch. Well, yeah, that's certainly honorable thing that you're willing to do there, John Kelly. All right, so let's talk about this next point. This is something that we haven't necessarily done as a company yet, although we certainly wouldn't mind the opportunity to do that, and we certainly have made strides in that direction. But talking about the CMAR project delivery method, and what do you think? Or I mean, I know what my thoughts are about feedback that I've heard from architects, and about contractors and their expectations and how they might be able to collaborate better. But what's your general thoughts about CMAR, and then any opportunities that just jump out at you where as a GC you might be able to offer some, excellent collaboration because of that project delivery system?
Yeah, I think it's a good delivery system. We've had a couple of opportunities to do probably what we would call like a hybrid CMAR. Maybe a few architects locally that have been involved in CMARs and, tried to set one up almost in a private setting, but, maybe a little less formal.
Yeah.
And it went well. It kind of lines up with just the delivery method that we talk about a lot, just the way we like to do business.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, I've heard quite a few architects that don't really particularly care about it.
Yeah.
I can't really give a lot of reasons why. I know that you recently had some conversation with an architect about some of it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I think that I've definitely heard a handful of architects say they don't really care for the process.
Yeah.
But to your point too, just not really well versed in it per se in the sense of actually CMAR.
Yeah. Yeah. From my understanding, the contractor, of course, it's the construction management at risk or manager at risk, scenario. So you're basically agreeing to a set price for the project, and you're willing to take on that risk that you're going to be able to bring that project in at or below that cost. But the one aspect of it that I know, and I'm not speaking about anyone in particular or any scenario in particular, just generally speaking, I know that there's an expectation on the architect side in a CMAR situation where, because it's not going out for bid, it's actually being awarded up front, and there's an expectation there that the contractor is going to be very involved in the final design phase and review of the plans and giving feedback to the budget, and also connecting subcontractors with the design team and the stakeholders to make sure that there just aren't any blind spots that aren't being revealed because they're not being involved. So I know there's that expectation, and I have heard, generally speaking, that sometimes that expectation, they on the architect side, they don't feel like maybe us as contractors are meeting that expectation. So that sounds like to me an opportunity. When I hear stuff like that, I don't think bad. I think, opportunity, because I always think that that would be something that we'd knock it out of the park on, because we like you just talked about with the public stuff, you've actually helped put together budgets for projects that you ultimately didn't even get awarded. So clearly in one that it's a grand slam already.
Yeah.
With CMAR, we'd be all over that. So, but it is an opportunity if done right I would think an opportunity for an architect or an architect firm and a general contractor to form a really strong relationship.
Right.
Like if they met those expectations and really maximized the benefit for the stakeholder as a result of really doing their due diligence and putting forth the effort required, I would think that'd be a way to really solidify a relationship that could last for years, you know, and potentially pay huge dividends down the road. So again, to me, I see opportunity there, but it's unfortunate that maybe that's not necessarily a delivery system that's smiled on so much right at the moment. But I know if we had the opportunity, we'd turn that around. We'd turn that smile right side up.
There you go. Yeah, no, that sounds good. I think that I think that we would do well in those type of projects for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's talk about this next point then, the constructability reviews during schematic design. Again, this would probably be something that would take place in a private setting, or maybe as a consultant. If someone just said, "Hey, look, I want to do this, and I really just want your expertise on it. I want you to look this over and give me, your thumbs up or thumbs down about just how doable is this set of plans
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, last week in our on our podcast, we talked about the architect looking at the feasibility of the project and actually doing a little bit of homework and making
Like with
sure
the Reno thing and stuff.
Yeah, before we go do a bunch of work on this, let's make sure that you can actually do it. Let's make sure that you don't have to build this up 2 or 3 feet, or let's make sure that this project fits, within the building area.
Yeah.
Just different things that they could do in the beginning of the project, which you've also seen the other side of that, where they just jump in, draw a bunch of plans, and now all of a sudden it has to be elevated 2 feet, and it's not going to work because the existing building is already there.
Yes.
That would be an example of what we could do, I think, on the constructability of a project. Like, once we know that this is a possibility and they start doing those early drawings, we can really get involved and say, yeah, look, this is a good way to do this, or no, this is a bad way to do this.
Yeah.
Really give some good, valid input to the constructability. And I think that happens. I mean, I think that, we have a couple of projects right now that we're working on that we either are in this phase or are going to be in this phase soon. And I think from what I'm getting, the architects like to hear that feedback, and it works. It's a good combination. It's teamwork,
Yeah, it makes me think of the old saying, "An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure." And I remember that project you kind of alluded to there, very generally about an existing building and part of the design had to be elevated and it wasn't going to work. And now you're looking at me with that look on your face like you don't even know what I'm talking about. But I guarantee you pulled that out of the data bank, because that was a real project that we did. I'll tell you later. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. But we actually did have a project that was similar to that, where had someone just really gone and looked at the site first and done a little bit of due diligence, they'd have found out that, oh, by the way, this is going to be required and it's going to change the whole elevation of the project.
Yeah.
So that's a great example of where just a little prior work, and somehow, I don't know how you managed to, use your wiles on the and got it through the permitting process, and we were able to work with what was there. But it was no easy task, and we were sweating bullets there for a while. So, and it worked out well, but like there again, it could have just as easily gone south. So, whereas again, a little bit of prevention would have just nipped all that in the bud, and it could have been handled, as paperwork instead of, sleepless nights.
Right.
But anyways, all right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about this next point, because this is a good one. I think probably this is something that I don't think any contractor probably does to the extent that we probably should at times, and that's bringing in subcontractor expertise as a design resource. When we have the opportunity, particularly in private work, where we're working with the design team, because we brought them in and we put the team together and everything, it would really be great if when they're designing certain aspects of the project, the mechanical, for example, to be able to have access to the actual subcontractor that's going to be installing that particular scope or whatever. So again, can you think of other ways where we could use this as a lever to collaborate with architects and, bringing more added value? How do you see, like in a real world application, because I know subcontractors are busy as well. I know everybody's time is precious, but again, is the time spent worth the end result of having a little bit more communication and clarity on what's going to unfold on the job site?
Yeah, so, I think that you kind of walk into it backwards, right? You get the subcontractors involved. They're going to be the ones actually doing the work. They know a lot of the best practices. They know the cost of the equipment or the material, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So if you get their input on how this is going to be built, or the best and most cost efficient way to build it, then you can take that information back to your engineer, or you can take that, information back to your architect and use that during design. And that kind of helps us land at where we were talking about earlier, where we know a number and we can go land on that number. But if it's just open-ended design without any of that input, then there's a good chance it's not being designed the way that they're planning to build it or could build it,
Yeah.
and still meet all the potential code and requirements of the project.
Yeah.
So that is something that we do a lot of. And, I started doing this 18 years ago. Honestly, I never worked in a general contractor's office. I had no idea how this world even really worked. Like, I didn't do public bids for like 7 years, probably 5-7 years. And then I just started going to pre-bids, just trying to figure out like how it worked.
Sure.
But that goes along with the design side. I mean, I didn't even really realize, how, an architect is hired and they hire their engineers, they do all that. Like, it took some time for me to kind of piece all that together. Like,
Yeah.
I went from like wiring houses to, kind of working my way into being a general contractor.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, the first few jobs that I had, I did at the time it was shopping centers and stuff like that. I would go do the little build out package. I would do everything in CAD, draw it up, submit it to the fire marshal, submit it for the building permit, and that's all I knew. And early on, I had an electrical guy that would say, "Look, if you need any help, I can design it for you," and just a regular
Nice.
subcontractor.
Yeah.
So the first opportunity I got, I was like, "Look, I need to do these drawings," and he literally drew up on my floor plan everything he needed.
Nice.
And I put it in there, and I did the same thing with the HVAC guy and the plumber. And so for a number of years, I did that. That's how we did it. I would draw up a floor plan. I would let them handwrite on there what they wanted. I would put it in AutoCAD, and then I'd go submit it.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were, under all the thresholds where you would require an engineer. And at the time, too, it was even different. There was not as much red tape.
Yeah.
So I worked that way for a number of years, not really realizing that there was other ways, I guess, or I knew there were other ways, but I just knew that this way worked.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's a pretty good way of doing business. I mean, I find out that, this many years later, with the way we like to do business, to get those guys input early really makes a difference and really helps you stay on budget.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking the whole time you were describing that. I was thinking to myself, this is the kind of collaboration we'd like to have back,
Yeah.
We kind of missed that, face-to-face and just getting real-world input on stuff and being able to make a much smarter decision on things. So that's pretty cool. All right, so again, I'm putting you in the architect's shoes. So from an architect standpoint, again, how do you think they would appreciate this kind of input? Like, is there some particular way that we could do better bringing them subcontractor expertise as a design resource, or do you think it's more still after the fact than it is, during design that we're going to be able to tap into that resource?
No, I think during design you can tap into it. I mean, I know a few projects that we've recently done. We brought those guys in early. They can actually explain to the architect and tell how they would like to do this. I think the architect likes to hear that. They like to get those details. Rather than having the sub say, "Man, what did you intend by this on the plans? I mean, I've never even seen this," or whatever. You have a job that's going seamless because the sub helped put this design together.
It's already in his head.
And the sub knows what the expectation is because they've been at the table with them,
Yeah.
A month or two before getting all this planned out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the architects appreciate it. I think the project goes smoother for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that they really appreciate that, expertise from the subs in the beginning of the project.
Yeah, I do too. All right, so this last point, it's kind of I preface it by saying, in a perfect world, it's kind of a nice, would be nice to have
Yeah.
point of collaboration, but the idea is circling back around to the design team as the project wraps up or after it wraps up, and just having a brief meeting and about how things went on the project, what worked in the design, maybe anything that didn't work, what we could have done better to collaborate. Like, I'm sure at the end of every project, an architect probably has thoughts about, man, I wish they'd have done this, or man, I wish they'd have caught that and let me know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Things like that, and they might be little nuggets that could really help with future projects. So I know that it's probably something that a lot of contractors feel like they should do and wish they had the time to do, and probably end up not doing.
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I like a little post job meeting
Yeah.
with the architect. I know we've done it a time or two. Well, like you say, it's usually well intended to do it in a lot of situations, and then sometimes it just never happens. But I know that we've done a few. Very handy information goes back and forth. You know, it's always nice to hear, you know, the expectation of architects and even end users if they can be involved in those meetings.
Sure.
But for sure with architects, just to understand, you know, what their expectation is obviously helps us perform a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it's also a good time to share information both ways. And as long as you have, I mean, if you have an architect wanting to have this meeting, they're probably wanting to get any information they can, whether it's critical or not.
Yeah. They're probably
so-
open to it.
Yeah, so, no, I think it's an awesome opportunity to do that, and I think that both parties certainly grow from that.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I think we touched on 6, you know, legitimate points on collaboration, things that I think if you'd done a little bit of all those, you know, depending on the situation, if you make an effort, I think it'd go a long way towards building better bridges, stronger bridges between general contractors and architects.
Yeah.
There's definitely more of a benefit from our collaborating and working together than having any kind of, you know, contentious relationship on projects. That
Yeah.
never seems to, the project always seems to suffer whenever that surfaces. It never seems to help the project, you know, so.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on that?
No,
Give us some words of wisdom, John. Come on.
I mean, obviously, you know, just the idea of being a team and working together, and you know, we talked a lot about things that we can do to help, you know, architects today. Obviously, that's going to make the project go better. Working hand in hand with people you enjoy working with, or people that you you know, mesh well with. All this stuff builds chemistry, builds relationships. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that all goes hand in hand. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, good team makes the dream, right? Ain't that what they say? Something like that.
That's right. Teamwork makes the dream work. Come on. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up. So I say we say adios.
Adios.
All right. Thanks for dropping in today.
Yeah, man.